We have politicians who legislate the right to food, the right to education, the right to work, the right to information, the right to saving tigers. Look how much time we put in that. Look how much time Dr. Manmohan Singh thought he was putting in that. But do we have a delivery system that complements that legislation? In my opinion, no. If we have to look at parcels of land for the tiger, how they connect in corridors, how you get local people into partnerships, how you work with civil society, we have to create new models. We can't have an antiquated colonial service like the Indian Forest Service policing the forests of India anymore. We are 1.2 billion people, the forests are going down, they're getting degraded. We have to come up with new models. I don't understand, and I've been asking all my friends in the civil services, all the friends I know as politicians, that in the last 64 years, 200 ambassadors have been appointed as independent, non-governmental ambassadors to our missions abroad. They've looked after entire missions in the Americas, in Europe, everywhere else. Why is it, when all this is written into our laws, when we've had at least 100 secretary ranking officers in government who never went through the IAS, why is it that younger generation who are interested are not given 5-year contracts as directors of national parks? Does a forest officer have to be the director of a national park? In my opinion, when you study the fine lettering of our laws, there are grey areas where you can induct civil society to do jobs, work in partnership with them, hold hands with them. So far we don't hold hands. Bittu and I spent 10 years in the 1990s believing that strengthening the policing will solve the problem. It doesn't solve the problem in the end. The problem keeps growing. You have to use brains to solve the problem, and you have to have a model of a delivery system that partners with the world around you. So you can take on a young wildlife scientist in a forest department, give him the ranking while he serves of a divisional forest officer and say, come, let's work together. Let's hold hands. Let's do this together. It's not you and me or you against me. There are not so many Fateh Singhs left. People don't welcome outsiders anymore. I was lucky. Bittu was lucky. His magazine started because it was around a fireplace with Fateh Singh. We threw up ideas. We created ideas. It's not easy today for the younger generation. So when he asked me, what can all of you do? I think our first job has got to be to change the models that are governing. In my opinion, after 40 years, nearly 40 years, the models that we are using are not correct. They don't work.
Well, you know, this is a lit fest, and Tennyson, I've loved him all my life, and what occurs to me right now, the line from Ulysses, Balu, which applies to us. Though much is taken, much abides, and though we are not now the strength which in old days moved heaven and earth, that which we are, we are. One equal temper of heroic hearts, made weak by time and fate, but strong in will to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. We cannot afford to yield. And quite honestly, I've given up on this generation. Forget about the color of my hair. I look at people under the age of 20 and I say that we will change the world. And I cannot go to them. I mean, imagine, Balu, if Martin Luther King had gotten up when he changed the face of America and its governance, and he said, I have a nightmare. What would have changed, Balu? And the fact of the matter is that as of now, why I do believe that each one of you, and certainly the children in your lives, will make a difference is, first of all, the children will outlast my very stupid generation. We did not fight for independence, we were given it. We took the forest faster than the British, as Valu said. And Tiger Fire, what is this book about? It's a metaphor. It's a metaphor for India, it's a metaphor for forests, it's a metaphor for polar bears if you come down to it. We are tampering with this planet. All economy sits on the bedrock of ecology. So Valu, you tell me this. I work with 1 million children across, and I tell them a one-line story. You can't save the tiger if you don't save the forest. You save the forest, you saved all the biodiversity. In the process of doing that, you fed 600 pure rivers in India. And in the process of doing that, because every seed that falls and turns into a tree is 50% of dry weight of carbon, You've sequestered carbon, fought climate change. Saving the tiger saves ourselves. The children understand, pre-primary, 5 years, 6 years, they understand this. I think Meetu Chib, who works with spastics, Falu, she describes spastics as intelligent minds in disobedient bodies. My question to you, and to ask whether these people can help, is that are we then intelligent minds in disobedient lifestyles, ourselves the part of the problem? And does that mean that we just sit back and say, okay, we can't do a thing, or should we work? What exactly should these people do by your reckoning? I agree about the system. That has to change, and the Aam Aadmi Party is asking for that change. Good governance. But what would you say we can do? We can't wait for politics to invent itself or reinvent itself. The tiger will go very fast if we don't do something. So you tell me, what can these people do?
If I had the answers to that kind of question, Bittu, I wouldn't be sitting here. God knows where I would be sitting. I don't have an answer of what we all can do. I can only answer you in terms of specifics right now, because the broad feeling of hope in terms of how we wanted to fight for the tiger has changed. Now we have to look at the detail and strategy and how we change, and so it's really difficult. So we all try to do, I think those who care about the tiger anywhere in the audience will try to do their bit, and all those bits count into a larger whole. But I don't have one thing I can say. I think it's better that if they have some questions. I can't see anybody, so I'm going to have to stand there.
You go up and stand there, and let's have some picking of Valmik Thapar's mind.
No.
Questions.
If there are any questions.
To get a mic across.
Can I ask the first question, please? I'm here.
Wait, Bittu, you need to stand here and see,
All right,
I can. For me.
All right, there we go.
Valmik, can I ask a question? Essentially, there has been a lot of tourism in tiger reserves. For example, I believe the Taj Group has opened something in Ranthambore. Does that help or does that hinder the tiger? Because I believe it does attract tourists from all over the world. It probably creates awareness. But at the other end, I don't know, there must be ecological problems that these hotels or whatever must be bringing on. What do you have to say about that? Should we encourage that? Because there is very little I can do. I work in the financial sector to help the tiger, other than give money. But to be part of these tourism initiatives, is that positive or is that negative?
You see, if I look at me and my colleagues, how did I start my life with a tiger as a tourist? How did Ullas Karan start his life with tigers as a tourist going to Kabini? How did Bittu Sehgal start his life with sanctuary and wildlife as a tourist? You can't. Tourism is the birthright of every citizen on this planet. How was the world's history written? It's written through early travelers. You wouldn't have had a history if you didn't have tourism. Those people who say ban tourism from here and ban tourism from here are crazy. They're off their rocker. They haven't gone into the problem. It's not tourism that you ban. You create, through the talent that exists in this country, everywhere, the best kind of tourism. You learn from other countries. I've tried with 3 ministers of tourism to have a meeting between Africa and different countries and India to see whether we can learn something from them, whether they can learn something from us. But we can't get these meetings off the ground. Nobody gives a hoot. We in India think we know it all. So we have little problems that crop up because our judiciary and others get misled that tourism is the problem and tigers are suffering because of tourism. Tigers can suffer because of badly managed tourism, but who manages tourism? Forest Department. Who makes the rules for tourism? Forest Department. Is any training given to a forest officer in Dehradun when he becomes a forest officer in tourism? No. Why are these questions not raised in the media? We raise everything else. Why is the forest officer in charge of all this? Why doesn't he take a really nice 30-year-old consultant who's worked in tourism from outside the system and say, come on, help me. You're tourism in charge, like every other government department has done. Nandin Nilekani's got cabinet rank. Why? He makes the UID. Sam Pitroda brought in telecom. Why should 20% of India not have outsiders, individuals, the younger generation participating? That's the way. When Bittu says, what are you going to do? That's what you can do now. These are the models to bring out. These are the models to change. So tourism, vital. Even though there are problems in Africa, the lion populations have gone down. There's a lot of elephant poaching. but the local communities have benefited. I travel every year to Africa. I meet every player in Africa, and it's unbelievable to see how that happens. $100 million of entry fees from the Masai Mara each year percolate to the Kenyan Wildlife Service and to the 2 Masai councils. It's interesting, even though there may be corruption, but it's interesting. Let us start that percolation properly in this country for the first time, 64 years after independence. So yes to tourism, yes, but the right kind of tourism. And don't blame tourism for destroying tigers. Blame those who make the rules for tourism, enforce the rules for tourism, and manage tourism, which is not the tour operators or the agencies or the hotels. Charge the hotels if they pollute. Charge them if all their wastes are going anywhere. Hit them with penalties. Bang them on their head. But for God's sake, use your brain to have an innovative tourism policy. That's the least we can do in this country with the brains that we have.
That's Valmik Thapar for you.
Hello, Bittu, my question is for you. The other night
Just let everyone know your name, please.
Okay, my name is Manju. The other night, your Sanctuary gave an award to this young man who was a poacher, and then later he became the savior of the tiger by educating the community. Could we not do that, more of that? I mean, people who are prospective poachers, could not the local community educate them that this is not the thing to do and you need to be a tiger savior rather than a poacher? I mean, isn't there a way of doing that?
Valu, what Manju's talking about is a guy called Ontai, who's part of the Bodoland thing. He is a surrendered militant. He wasn't a poacher, he was a tracker who found animals for the poachers, and now he's put about 20 of them in jail. So
these are unique things that happen across the world. I mean, this is it's in a way a very difficult question for me to answer the way you've asked it, because I can't say that every poacher should be picked up and made into a conservationist, because this is not possible. There are lots of cases where poachers have put on the guise of conservationists but continued their poaching, and Africa is littered with these examples.
But
so
the community can't...
It's a very difficult thing. This depends on who you found, how you found out that he's changed, and I'm not getting into this issue, but when you're talking about poaching because you believe obviously it's a major problem, the best problem of how you deal with poaching is also how you deter the poacher. And you deter the poacher by involving and engaging your local community and your village with what's happening around the park, just in terms of civil society. Even to have a meeting like this every month by a director of the park and all the team that works in the park, and invite people, let them have a cup of tea, a little bit of barfi or mithai, talk about the park. We don't do the basics. We don't have any level of wanting to trust. We are really policing everyone, right from every I mean, when we talk about education, and education is a key in conservation, we have 5 lakh teachers short. So who's making all the teacher training institutes? And how are we going to do that with 5 lakh teachers short, or 200 lakh doctors short? We don't look at what is our delivery system to provide relief. And that's what I'm talking about the tiger. I'm mixing the tiger with human beings, but it's important because that's the only way to explain it to you.
we got a
So there
question.
are ways, like Mr. Fateh Singh Rathore worked very closely with local communities, being very stern, being very fierce, but he deterred the poacher from entering Ranthambore. Now you have to be really tough at that job. He was self-taught in a way, but he's rare and he's unique. How do we institutionalize that training? Yes.
There was a question there, Valu, first.
Hello.
May I? Just
Yes,
there,
sir.
and then you with the mic. All right?
Yes, sir. My name is Niharika. I've actually seen your shows on TV. I'm a born animal lover. So what I wanted to ask was, what sparked your interest in tigers? There has to be a start for everything. So what was your start?
First of all, my shows on TV, that was another era when I was much younger. That's gone. They keep repeating them. So, I mean, I keep looking at myself looking so young and with fairly black hair. So that's in my past now. What sparked my interest? I don't know what it is. I mean, one fine day I was very fed up of my life in Delhi. I had a lot of personal problems. I was fed up with city life. I took a train. It was an afternoon train to Ranthambore. It was then called the Deluxe, which used to travel between Delhi and Bombay. I arrived at Savai Madhopur station on a warm March day in 1976, and there was no thing called a jeep in Savai Madhopur. There's no such thing as a jeep. There were only horse carriages, and I was the city boy waking up a horse carriage man in the middle of the night and going to what is now the Taj Hotel, which was a completely desolate place. You can't believe what that place was like in 1976. Anyway, so I arrived there and it took me 2 days to meet Fateh Singh Rathore, and I did. and I spent my first 3 weeks there by myself in Jogi Mahal with no tourists, not even one day coming in. And the day I saw tigers there, I called Fateh Singh in. It's part of my book. I got engaged with Ranthambore, with what was happening inside Ranthambore. It was luck. It was a lot to do with Fateh Singh, and it became my life, and I never left it alone. I've always been lucky. I've never worked for anyone. I've managed to do that throughout my life for 38 years. So that's what happened.
With the mic, you, and then you can pass the mic forward to him.
Hi, I'm Chandan Deshmukh.
You need to have the mic on.
Hello? Yeah. Hi, I'm Chandan Deshmukh. First of all, congratulations on this feat. It is not easy to, publish a book. Congratulations. My question is, I was going through a few clips in National Geographic Channel regarding, the poaching of tiger in China. The tiger wines, the skin, and all the, the smuggling of the bones, etc. I comprehend that the tiger is a very dignified,
Your question.
It's an animal. It's a dignified animal. But in India, can we make this legal? I mean, we domesticate animals, right? All the cattle, all the domesticated animals. In the same way, can we have a domesticated tiger reserve? In which everything is legal. I mean, there is poaching going on. There is poaching going on. It's
Okay,
very
hold on. Your question is whether you can farm tigers.
correct. Absolutely. Can you farm tigers?
I suppose if you wanted to, you could, but that's not the world I want to live in. If it is the world you want to live in, you can. It's not my
Okay.
world. The Chinese farm tigers, you're welcome.